This is birth control for pigeons. We call it affectionately planned pigeonhood.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another series of the Pest Playbook. This is one that I personally have been very excited about. We've got Erick Wolf, who is the CEO of Inalytics. And today we're going to be talking about Ovocontrol P, which, as far as I understand it, is pest control for pigeons. But I'm going to let the expert kind of take us through exactly what that looks like. So Erick, if you could maybe just give us a quick 101 elevator pitch into the Ovocontrol P product, I think that'd be a great way to get started.
Okay, so Ovocontrol P belongs in a category of pest control that is a contraceptive. This is birth control for pigeons. And the idea is that you're not killing the birds, you're simply stopping their reproduction, analogous to a insect growth regulator. Kind of the same concept, simply stop their reproduction or their successful reproduction and allow the population to decline through attrition rather than trying to increase mortality in the population. So really easy, very safe, very effective. But that's really the short introduction. It's just birth control for pigeons. We call it affectionately planned pigeonhood because it works the same way. You just got to think of it as contraception for ladies, for females. They take a pill every day. In the case of Ovocontrol, you get a little dose of Ovocontrol into the pigeon on a daily basis, and they're not having any babies. That's it. That's
fascinating. And this is one of the reasons why I was so excited to learn about this. So maybe, Erick, you could talk us through how the product came into development. Is this something that many pest control companies will do in this space where they have the planned pigeonhood the way you described it? Or maybe you could talk us through how you developed it.
We started about 25 years ago, and it is not an easy climb for us or the pest controller to follow this. And the reason for that is that most customers that have a pigeon problem want the pigeons gone today. I mean, the faster, the better. Just like cockroaches, you got cockroaches in your kitchen, you call the pest controller and you want to come back and see belly up cockroaches. And with pigeons, it's a bit different. For one reason, it's a bird. And even pigeons have a different status socially in our culture than do rats. For example, if I go and kill 50 rats tonight at the local supermarket, they probably give me a medal. Conversely, if I go there this afternoon and kill 50 pigeons, I'd probably make the evening news in San Diego. So they're just in a different place in our society. And you see that all over the world. That is not something exclusive to the United States. In other places around the world, it is simply unacceptable, illegal, you name it, to kill a bird. So you can't simply poison or shoot or trap and euthanize a pigeon in other places around the world. There's just a few countries that allow it, but it's an extremely short list. So we started. Actually, the chemistry for Ovocontrol is based on a compound called nicarbazine. Nicarbazine was developed by Merck, the pharmaceutical company, back in the mid-1950s. It had nothing to do with pigeons and was developed and introduced at the time as a means to control a disease called coccidiosis in chickens. So chickens get this enteric disease caused by protozoa that they pick up off the ground, and it can be highly pathogenic in young birds. So call it first 28 days of age of a chicken. And nicarbazine was one of those innovations that was developed by the pharmaceutical industry to help poultry integrators at the time. I mean, back in the early 1950s, you didn't simply go to Costco and load up on chicken. Chicken was a very special meal reserved for Sundays. You had chickens running around on the farm, and those are the ones that would get eaten. But the problem with those chickens, if you put them in a chicken house and you come back a couple days later and half of them would be dead from this enteric disease. So it really was a disease that had to be prevented. It was not something that lends itself to a vaccine or vaccination. You had to actually prevent it. And nicarbazine was introduced by Merck in 1955 to prevent this disease. So they learned very quickly that there was a problem. If you get the nicarbazine into the breeding chickens, into the breeding flock that lays the eggs, that becomes the day-old birds, they wouldn't hatch. So typically in a breeding operation, you collect the eggs, you put them in an incubator, and 25 days later, the eggs hatch. And if you mistakenly, inadvertently incorporate nicarbazine into the breeder feed, the eggs won't hatch. I mean, it's like turning a light switch off in an incubator. These eggs stop hatching. So for, 50 years, the Merck salesman ran around selling, and all the major, to this day, Ben, all the major poultry producers. Who do you have back there in Jacksonville? It's probably Purdue and Tyson Foods or something like that. They all use this product to control the coccidiosis 50 years later in their chicken flock. Today, still to today, there's concern, well, we have to avoid getting the stuff into our breeder feed. So they go to great lengths in their quality control to avoid errors that might get some even residues of nicarbazine in the breeder flock. One day, we're in talking with the company that makes this stuff, and I'm explaining this phenomena, and they said, well, if it works so well in preventing birds from breeding, basically, why not use it in pigeons? And I said, well, that's a pretty stupid idea, but I thought about it for a few days, and I said, well, maybe it's not so stupid. And so we started off in the development of a product to prevent successful reproduction. What it actually does, Ben, is it interferes with what's called the sperm receptor site. It's the ZP3. Mammals have a ZP3 as well, and we know it either interferes there or it somehow changes. Fertilization is a very complicated process. You and I both know that as when the sperm and the egg come together, you have fertilization. Like everything else, it's more complicated than that. There's a number of different proteins that are involved, et cetera, et cetera. Without going into any detail, let's just say it's complicated. And this stuff, the nicarbazine, interferes with that process. So the theory was, well, if we give this to pigeons, it'll have the same effect. And we were not the first people to think of this. There's stuff in the literature going back 50 years. And now it's actually 75 years. And if you go back into the literature, you'll find people have tried this and failed. So we tried it and made some changes along the way, worked with some professors and some people smarter than us, and figured out a way to get it to work. And we collaborated with the USDA National Wildlife Research Center in Fort Collins and came up with a formula. We actually didn't start with pigeons. We started with Canada geese, resident Canada geese. Long story, but the product failed. I mean, the product worked, but it was a commercial failure. You have to have, for one of the questions in your overview document was, where does it fit? And contraceptive technology fits with species that reproduce rapidly and have a short lifespan. So in the case of pigeons, you have a bird that's reproducing up to 6 times a year and 2 eggs per clutch. But the good news, they only live 2 or 3 years. Feral pigeons under an urban scenario don't live that long. I mean, you'll get people argue with us. They've been in 4-H and they've had a pigeon for 15 years. Yeah, with proper nutrition and veterinary care and all that stuff, sure. I've even read literature where they reported a bird that lasted 30 years. My partner has a cat that's 20 years old, but that's an anomaly. Urban conditions, the pigeon has to survive on its own and have to avoid predators and disease, 3 squares a day, et cetera, et cetera. That's hard. I mean, the real world is hard, but if you are cared for, you're going to last longer. If you have a species that breeds infrequently and has a long lifespan, contraceptive technology is probably not the right way to go. You're just waiting too long for the effects to take hold. Attrition doesn't really mean that much, and they're breeding once a year. And that was one of the problems with the resident geese. They only breed once a year. After that, you have to go to another hemisphere to find breeding geese. So we gave up on that one, shifted everything to pigeon control. And that business started up about 15 years ago. We got started with pigeons roughly in 2010 when we got a registration from EPA that was workable. So that's when we started, and here we are today.
That's amazing. And I do want to go through that process a little bit more, because I imagine there's some serious red tape that you had to kind of cut through in order to put something like this out there. What I'm curious about is I was watching the video on your website before you jumped on about how it distributes it once a day. It was really helpful, very educational for me to kind of understand, okay, so you take the feeder, you place it where you work with the business, you place it where it's going to be centric, where there's pigeons, and then once a day it distributes it. So what, it's not just nicarbazine, right? Is it like, how did you put together the pellets, I guess, that distributes? Like, what is it exactly?
The pellets, the Ovocontrol kibbles is 0.5% nicarbazine. So it's nicarbazine in a carrier. It gets extruded through a machine. Very similar process to making dog food or cat food kibbles. It's the same damn thing. We make it highly palatable for the birds. And you put that feeder up there. It can take a couple of days, a couple of weeks until they're conditioned to coming to that feeder. But pigeons are, in many respects, highly intelligent. They're nowhere to go for a free meal, and they are trainable. So you just train them to go back to the feeder every day. Taking Ovocontrol is kind of like, for a female, taking the pill. You just get a little dose every day, and that's it. So those feeders trigger. First thing in the morning, we like to feed the birds at sunrise. It's when they're ravenously hungry, and it triggers just once a day. The birds will stick around for a couple, 3 minutes, and most of them will leave, and some of them will stick around waiting for the feeder to go off again. It won't go off again until the next morning. So that's the long and short of it. You just feed the birds once a day some Ovocontrol. The treated birds are going to stop hatching any eggs.
It's so fascinating. That video was very captivating. Maybe you could walk us through then. So if you have like someone in San Diego, is it like a supermarket maybe that's dealing with pigeons, or who would you say is kind of your core clientele that have pigeon problems?
What we've learned over the years, Ben, is that anybody with pigeons, with certain exceptions, can use Ovocontrol. So it's a general use pesticide as opposed to being restricted use. It's general use. You don't need any special license. Your only obligation is to read and follow the label. Our core business focus, though, or selling focus, is on large commercial facilities, enterprises. So think in terms of power plants, refineries, ports, airports, college campuses. We like multi-structure facilities for obvious reasons. Any place that produces a lot of heat, lumber, steel, glass. I mean, the list just goes on, and they all seem to have pigeon issues to one extent or the other. It's just pigeons are highly successful in urban environments. I mean, you don't find them if you go out to the boonies somewhere where there's no farmland or just mountainous. There's no pigeons. They concentrate in urban areas or man-altered areas, developed areas. And what they're in a power plant, and there's nothing to eat. There's no food. So what are they there for? They are there for quality harborage, protection from the elements, protection from predators, right? I mean, they find places in those kinds of facilities where they have cover, where they can build a nest, where they don't have hawks visiting constantly, nice and warm, dark. That's what they look for. And what you need for a pest is, it doesn't have to be a pigeon, is food, water, and shelter. And it's all three have to be present for a successful population. And in many of these places, you don't have any food, so they go there for the quality harborage, which they find in so many different industrial plants. And of course, the pigeons will drive these customers absolutely crazy. So back in the day, the only thing you really had was trap, shoot, or poison. You had to increase mortality in the population in order to drive them out, drive them away. Think of a large-scale power plant, a nuclear power facility, and you want to scare pigeons away. How exactly are you going to do that? The place is so vast, and you don't even have to be in that big of a place. You can be in I don't care, a natural gas facility, which is much smaller, and still have the pigeons that are driving you nuts. They poop on the machinery, on the equipment, on the walkways, on the employees. I mean, I could just go on, and customers just can't live with that. And so they search out options. And of course, the first thing you think about is, I have to murder these birds to get rid of them. And if you think about it, if you consider those metrics I told you about before, about how fast they reproduce. So you got a plant, you got 100 pigeons there, and they decide, well, we're going to trap them. We're going to live trap the birds. And of course, you have to euthanize them. You can't do anything else with them. And so the trapper comes in, and let's say he's pretty successful and he gets 60. Well, how long do you think it takes for those 40 birds to make 100 again? I mean,
not that long.
Weeks. Not long at all. So the customer is back in the same pickle again. I mean, we encourage customers to use the various methods if it suits them, if it suits their site and circumstances. If you want to drag down the population quickly, you have to use, well, we don't recommend poisoning the birds. And the effective poisons, let's call them. Back in the day, if you go back 35 years ago, EPA banned them all. It was using the organophosphates and the carbamates birds are very sensitive to, just like insects, very sensitive to these chemistries, and you could kill a lot of birds really quick. Problem is that you killed other birds too. So you put up a fenthion impregnated perch, and yeah, you'll kill pigeons in a dairy barn, but if you get an owl in there, you got a dead owl too. So EPA banned all that stuff.
That makes sense.
Took it off the market. If somebody has an acute pigeon problem, you can start either before or after, during an Ovocontrol program. Ovocontrol, you're just attacking the problem from a different dimension. You're attacking the problem by reducing their reproductive capacities. And the issue with pigeons is it's easy to kill them, but much more difficult to prevent their reproduction. Well, it's actually easy to prevent it with Ovocontrol, but I'm just saying, left to their own devices, they just breed.
Right.
That's what they do. They eat, breed, sleep, lay eggs. That's
what
it.
They do. And that's exactly why I think it's such a cool solution that you found. So, and this is something I'd like to dive into a little bit more. So let's take the example of the power plant. They have 100 pigeons out there. They take the feeder that distributes the Ovocontrol P. How fast does it reduce the population of those pigeons in that area? And another thing I think would be interesting to understand is the timeline associated with that, because like you said, it's not killing them, it's not removing them, it's just stopping them from reproducing. So how does that go from 100 pigeons to what timeline?
The metric that we use and that we promise customers is 50% annually. You'll lose half the treated population annually. So you start with 100 pigeons. Next year, this time, you'll have 50. And the year after, you have 25. And it'll go down a curve and stabilize at roughly 5 to 10% of the starting point. Customers would like to have zero. In the world of biology, pigeons included, zero is an extremely low number. And the closer you get to zero, the more difficult and costly it becomes. So you can get down to 50 and then trap 25 and then just keep going as an option. Or you can start with 100 and trap 50, I don't care. But without the Ovocontrol, the birds are just coming back. They're just going to breed back again. Customers are always interested, pest control is always interested in, well, when am I going to see something? Well, with contraception, you don't necessarily see something. There's no corpses to count. How do I know this stuff is working? You know it's working because if nothing else, you can go up you can find a nest from treated pigeons and you can open up the egg, okay? And you will find in a regular egg, you'll find embryonic development, the beginnings of an embryo in there. In a treated Ovocontrol egg, you will only find the egg. You open it up and it looks like a table egg from the grocery store.
Interesting.
Those are also unfertilized eggs. The table egg comes from a hen, from a layer, but she never sees a rooster. Okay, these birds are not reproducing. They're bred genetically for egg production. The table egg that you buy in the store is going to be unfertilized. And it'll be the same way with that treated pigeon egg that you pick up out of a nest and open up. So if somebody is inherently curious about if this stuff is working, and just go grab an egg and open it up. Visually, though, Ben, if you use a poison, if you use a toxicant and you kill birds with it, it's working because you got dead birds to count. With Ovocontrol is different. The population goes down gradually but predictably through attrition. The customer will start seeing a difference within 90 days. And it's not the guy that's there every day, because you and I cannot tell the difference between 90 pigeons and 100 pigeons. They all look like a flock of pigeons. But it's the guy that comes to the plant periodically, maybe once a quarter, that will look at the flock and say, you've got less pigeons. What did you do? It seems like you got less birds. And it just keeps accruing that effect, because the attrition, of course, you got to let Mother Nature do her job. The attrition takes time. It doesn't take that long. I mean, again, pigeons have a short lifespan. So we count on that. And anything else you want to do, with the possible exception of using a toxicant, by all means, go ahead and do it.
Fascinating. So that's super helpful. And so maybe this would be a good time to go into then, like, how does somebody start working with you? Do they get the feeder from you and then they install it themselves, and then they get the Ovocontrol P and they manually do it? Or do you have teams that go out and install these for them? Or what does it look like to work with your company?
Ben, this is pretty simple stuff. Everything's available through distribution. So all the leading distributors carry the feeders, carry Ovocontrol. So the pest controller in most cases is familiar with his distributor, his chemicals distributor, be it Viceris or Target or Forshaw, Oldham, the leading distributors. They all have access to Ovocontrol. And the easiest thing for a pest controller to do is just work with their local distributor to secure the product. Setting up one of these feeders is not an exact science to it. It's more intuition and instinct. Where do I put this feeder? Where can I put it so nobody's going to tamper with it? The truck doesn't run over it, whatever. I don't want a homeless guy to walk away with it. We like flat rooftops, but it's not necessary to put it on a flat rooftop. If you don't have a flat rooftop available, we put it on the ground somewhere. We also, if you look through our website, you'll find our new feeder, which is called an urban feeder. They've been using these in Europe for a decade, very successfully. We decided we needed the ability to install one on the ground in public places. So it kind of, once you put these things in, it kind of looks like a trash can. And same principle, they trigger once a day, scatter bait, pigeons get conditioned to that, come, eat, leave. They've had, to give you an example, that they've had, the guy in Barcelona has 42 of them installed in the city. And Barcelona had just a terrible pigeon problem. They gradually get it under control. Cities, urbanized areas like that, of course, are more complicated. You need more feeders, more bait, more management, et cetera, et cetera. It's just, it gets into more complexity when you try to treat a larger urban area. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so will pest control companies then contract with you, or they get your products and then they offer it as a service then to Barcelona or any of those areas? Is that kind of generally how?
Yeah, I mean, they'll work with an impacted customer and they often contact us for guidance, for suggestions, especially ones that aren't familiar with it. There's a little assembly required for the feeder. I mean, it's like putting a bike together for the first time. You have to program the feeder, enter in the time of day you want it. Your dosage on this stuff, Ben, is dictated by bird numbers. So you have to have kind of an idea. Am I dealing with 100 birds or 1,000 birds? And then you set the feeder to trigger accordingly. But it's dead easy and is virtually impossible. People figure out, they work on making mistakes. I said it's impossible to make mistakes, but it's not true. People can make mistakes. I mean, we've had customers put this stuff out. They think they're using a toxicant and they put it out like a toxicant. That doesn't work because the baiting program or the baiting protocol for a toxicant is that you use pre-bait to attract birds in, as many birds as possible. You have it out there, ad lib access to the pre-bait, you get every bird in the neighborhood coming over. Ovocontrol is much different because your baiting protocol is limited. It's just limited to that amount of bait that goes out once a day from the feeder. They don't have ad lib access to it. So if somebody gives bird ad lib access to Ovocontrol, you'll have every bird, every raccoon, every whatever in the neighborhood coming over to eat it. So that's not the right thing to do. Your obligation is to read the label. It's a really simple label to follow. You read through that thing, you follow directions, and you're in good shape.
Well, excellent. Well, we're right at the top of time. Eric, was there anything else that I feel like I was going through the discussion guide? I think we covered a lot of the ground we wanted to. Was there anything else specific that you wanted to touch on? That
I guess the message that a pest controller wants to learn about, I think it's important that they understand that for them, this is a bird business that drives recurring revenue. So it's not an installation, Ben, you're going to put in once and then walk away. So the biggest competition for us is people installing netting. And that's well suited for a lot of different places, for a lot of different sites, et cetera, et cetera. But in the sweet spot of our business, which is large industrial sites, netting may be inappropriate or cost prohibitive. I should also add, as we get the calls, residential use. It's not appropriate for residential use. This stuff is just not suited for a residence. You're going to have every pigeon in the entire neighborhood in your backyard, and that's not necessarily what you want. I mean, the customer wants the birds to go away. This is a way to attract the birds. It's not a residential product, and we discourage residential use of Ovocontrol despite the phone calls and stuff. But pest controllers, ones that have adopted the technology and understand how to use it and how to sell it, been very successful with it. I encourage them to continue along those lines. Get somebody in, starting to use it, comfortable with it. They also got to know what to sell. So easiest thing to do is grab a piece of literature off our website, print it out and show it to a customer. Oftentimes they're happier with that. Easy to do it. I mean, it's not difficult, but you do have to comprehend birth control, contraception, not having any more, that pigeon is not going to have any more chicks.
Right. And I honestly feel like you really laid the groundwork and understanding for it in this conversation. The last thing that I wanted to ask you about is, did you see that Seinfeld episode where George says we have no deal with the pigeons? Did you catch that episode by chance? Oh my goodness.
I can find it.
Oh, it's immediately what I thought of. It's classic, but hey, really, really appreciate your time here today and talking through us. I'll make sure to include the website, so if anybody's interested, they can go to your website, get the literature, understand how it works, and start offering it as a service.
Let me know what it's done. I'd love to listen to it.
You bet. I will for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Eric. I really appreciate your time.
Anytime. Bye-bye.